Hello and welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I am Joe. I am your host every Tuesday evening right here on WNRI Radio, 95.1 FM and 1380 on the AM dial. This is a show for the consumer, and I hope to answer questions that the average consumer may have about buying a house, preparing to buy a house, selling a house, preparing to sell a house, or questions about, in general, how political issues may impact your real estate value or your ability to buy or sell a house. And I am a realtor, okay? That means in addition to having a license from the state of Massachusetts and Rhode Island to sell real estate, I have the professional designation of realtor, so I can put that little R after my name. And that means I'm a member of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors. And we have something that differentiates, that distinguishes us from the rest of the licensees out there. We have something called the Code of Ethics that we have to adhere to. And this is something that, in addition to complying with the law, okay, every licensee in all states has to comply with their state law on selling real estate. But we also have a code of ethics, which basically tells us how to behave for the consumer's benefit, okay, not to swindle the consumer, not to advertise in a misleading manner, not to misrepresent oneself or the properties. And we also have to treat our colleagues, other realtors, with respect, be honest, and act professional when speaking with these other realtors, with colleagues. And if not, that could be problematic because the offended realtor could bring a complaint, violation with the Code of Ethics, a complaint to the local board, and then that kind of keeps everyone in line, because if anyone does something that is not in accordance with the Code of Ethics, presumably a colleague, a realtor member would file a complaint against them, so that in theory is supposed to stop that behavior. So I'm a realtor. I work out of RE/MAX Preferred in North Providence, Rhode Island, and most of my business is conducted in northern Rhode Island and southern Massachusetts. I work with buyers and sellers. And as I've said every week for the past several weeks, we have more buyers than we have sellers right now. All right, so we need inventory. Inventory is very tight, not just in Rhode Island, not just in Massachusetts, but nationwide. Okay, traditionally, 6 months of inventory is what's considered balanced. That means it would take 6 months to sell through all of the houses that are listed on the market as of today at a normal sales rate. Okay, and we are just a little bit over 4 months of inventory in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and nationwide it's a little bit above that, but still, a good 30% below, 1/3 below the balanced market. So what does that mean? Okay, that means that if you have a house that you are thinking about selling and you want to put on the market, now is a good time to do that, because especially now in the winter, there's not a lot of competition. And as I mentioned last week, one of the things about demand, okay, the National Association of Realtors has conducted studies, and they've determined that demand for housing remains strong through the winter months. So even though we are experiencing very cold temperatures, below zero, single digits, and in other parts of the country even colder, there is continued demand for people to buy houses. So if you're thinking about putting your house on the market, whether it's an investment property, a home you live in, a second home, this is a good time because you don't have a lot of competition. There are not a lot of other houses on the market, okay? The number of houses on the market now is probably about 1 to 2/3 less or fewer than it is at the peak of the market, when the market is most active. Now, so it is a seller's market because inventory is tight. But it's also a buyer's market. Okay, one of the reasons it's a buyer's market is because we have not experienced a tremendous increase in property values, and that means you can still get a good value if you're willing to do a little work to the house to add value yourself. you can get a tremendous value when you buy the house. But the big reason why, and I apologize for those of you that listen to this every week, but the 30-year average for a fixed rate mortgage is about 8%. Okay? The 30-year average for a fixed rate mortgage as of today is 3.75%. All right, that means if you have good credit, whereas normally you would get an 8% rate on your mortgage, all right, during the average of all the years, today, in 2017, almost 2018, you can get a rate of 3.75%. That's for a 30-year mortgage, okay? So if you were going to get, say, a 15-year mortgage or, a shorter term like that, you could get a better rate, okay? Now, if you were going to get an adjustable rate mortgage, and we don't necessarily advise that people get an adjustable rate mortgage for the simple reason that rates are so low, they're only going to go up. So you're better off locking in at a low rate, okay? But this is why it's a buyer's market, because rates are probably never going to be this low again. Especially if you read the news, everybody should be engaged with what's going on in the economy and in society. It's generally expected that interest rates are going to continue to increase throughout 2018. They're also forecasting that the economy is going to grow. We've had 3 quarters now of growth of over 3%, which we haven't experienced in quite a long time. And so that bodes well going forward. Unemployment, labor participation is at an all-time high. Unemployment is at the lowest it's been in, I believe, 17 years. I might be a little off on that, but a very long time. So these are all good things, and people are going to start earning more money because they're not going to be underemployed as they were for the past, 8, 9, 10 years. So once people start earning more money, they feel a little bit more comfortable. They believe in the economy. They believe in the growth of the economy. Things are going to get better. So much of the health of, so much about the health of our economy depends upon people having trust, faith, hope for the economy. Hope that it's going to get better. Trust that what they're reading is going to, and reading in the news is going to be validated. Okay, and that's what makes the economy strong. They believe it's strong, so it is strong. If you have the same set of data, the same data points, and people are looking at them and they have a negative perception, they're not going to do things. But if they look at that data set and they determine that that's a good thing, they will have a positive perception and will do things like go out and maybe remodel the house, buy a house, refinance, buy a car, because they have confidence in the economy, where it's going, and that things will be, they will be able to continue to have a job and pay bills. So that's pretty significant. And if you look at all of the data, at least all the data that I've read, consumer optimism about the economy is very high. The highest it's been, again, in 20 years. So these are all things that bode well for the economy and for the housing market in particular. All right? Housing drives the economy at large, because every time a new house is sold, over $75,000 is injected into the local economy. Now, how is it injected into the local economy? Well, it's injected by people spending money on landscaping, remodeling the house, painting different rooms, buying supplies, shelving for the garage, buying furniture, things like that. Curtains. These are all things that go into the economy. Installing a pool, okay, when people buy a house. So what does that do? Not only does it inject money into the economy, it employs more people. So now there's demand for employment. If there's demand for employment, things will, be positive and continue to expand. So it makes a lot of sense in light of the fact that interest rates are really low. Housing is, inventory is tight. It makes sense for people to put their houses on the market because more people can buy more house with lower interest rates than they can when interest rates are higher. Okay. If you have any questions about this, you can call or text me, 401-580-9797. You can call me or text me. You can text me during the show, call me after the show. and I'll answer any questions that you have. Especially if you're thinking of buying or selling a house. And as I said, I am a realtor, so I make my living by selling houses, helping people buy houses. So please give me a call at 401-580-9797. You can also text me at that number. And we will start the process of getting you approved to buy a mortgage, pre-approved for a mortgage so you can buy a house. Now, one of the things that we always talk about is the first step when you're getting ready to buy a house is finding out how much house you can buy. All right. Now, how much house can the average person buy? Well, it depends on a few different factors, and that's why we work with John Dolbeck at First Home Mortgage, because he is a mortgage lender. He's a stand-up guy. He's a Navy veteran. He was on a submarine, so he's a veteran submariner, and he helps people get prepared to buy a home, get you pre-approved. He will tell you how much house you can afford. All right. Now, a lot of times people will find out that, oh, I can afford to buy a $350,000 house, but they don't want to spend that much because they want to keep their monthly payment lower. That's fine. As a realtor, I work for you, my client, the buyer. So if you only want to spend $275,000, even though you're pre-approved for a higher number, we're going to look at houses that are in your price range. Okay, that's the way it works. And John Dolbeck will give you the best mortgage program that's available for you, because this is another misconception that a lot of people have when they're buying a home about getting a mortgage. They think there is just, oh, it's a mortgage. No, there are many, many different mortgages available, from USDA to VA to FHA to Freddie Mac. All of these programs are for different types of situations, for different types of buyers. Okay, and John Dolbeck is very well versed and experienced in all of those, and he will advise you as to what you should be looking at. Which program would be the best fit for you, based on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a condominium, that might preclude some other programs. If you're looking to buy something in one socket, okay, well, you're not going to be able to get a USDA loan, but maybe a veteran loan, a VA loan, or maybe an FHA, maybe Rhode Island Housing will work. Okay, Rhode Island Housing, their programs change many times, several times a year. Okay, and sometimes they have down payment assistance. Sometimes they have closing cost assistance programs. There are lots of different options that are available out there that change on a regular basis. So we might talk about something today, the end of December 2017, but at 3-4 months from now, there may be a whole different set of programs that are available, and what we're looking at today is no longer available. So that's why you need to get involved with a mortgage lender like John Dolbeck at First Home Mortgage soon in the process, and then stay in contact with them. And you need to work with a broker, a buyer's broker, because if you're my client, I'm going to do what's best for you as a buyer, not what's best for the seller. Okay, I can only represent the seller 100% in his best interest, or the buyer in his or her best interest 100%. I can't represent both parties in the same transaction because they want a different outcome. The buyer wants to get it for as little as possible. The seller wants to get as much as possible for it. So, I can't represent both of them 100%. So I can represent one as what's called a transaction facilitator, and this is one of the state laws that we have to comply with. And the other one I can represent as a designated client representative, client agent, as for buyer or seller. Okay. So I still have to perform my duties in a responsible, ethical manner and handle funds with care and be honest throughout the transaction, even if I am not the designated client agent for someone as a buyer or a seller, because I represent the other side of the transaction. I always have to be honest, always have to be ethical, and act professional and handle the funds in a professional manner. Now, if you're a seller, okay, I have to do the same thing. I'm going to work with you to help you get as much money as possible for your home, and also the terms that are best for you as seller. Okay, now what are the terms? Well, the terms can vary. So if you have a house that might need some work, and let's say you're not handy around the house, or you don't have money to pay someone to make repairs, you're going to need different terms than someone who wants to sell their house and needs some work, but they are very handy or they have the funds to pay someone to make repairs, we're going to negotiate different terms. Okay. The same thing with different buyers. If, depending on who the buyer is for your house, we will negotiate different terms. So there, when you're buying or selling a house, there is the price, and then there are the terms. And these are different things, two different things that can be negotiated on behalf of my client. All right. Many times, you will have a buyer who will be able to pay more for a house with terms that may be a little bit more risky. Okay, that deal will be good for some sellers. It won't be good for other sellers. Okay, other times there will be a buyer who won't pay as much for the house, but they're putting a big down payment down, or they're paying cash. All right, and depending upon what the seller's situation is, the condition of the house, how quickly they need to move, these are things that we need to consider and try and negotiate the best thing for the seller based on what the buyer wants to do. Okay, and a lot of times it depends too on how much activity the property has. All right, if you're selling a $400,000 house in Burrillville, there are going to be fewer buyers looking at that property as opposed to if you're selling a $400,000 house in Cumberland or on the east side of Providence or in Barrington, where there are more houses like that, more people want to live in those areas. Okay, so you need to bear all of those things in mind, and these are things that I do as a realtor. Okay, you're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I am Joe, and this is what I do for a living. I help people buy and sell real estate. Okay, so we are coming up. It's almost let's see, we've been talking now for about 17 minutes, so we are going to take our first commercial break, and we will be right back.
Owners and those that will eventually purchase a home in their lifetime. When was the last time you spoke to a mortgage consultant? 1 year? 5 years? Never? Whether you are 18 years old or looking to retire and not sure what your next move will be, call John Dolbeck at First Home Mortgage right now. Why not take the time to improve your financial well-being? For free. There are many advantages to owning a home. John and his team will make sure to explain them and work with you every step of the way to get you where you want to be. Need help building or repairing your credit or saving money for a down payment? John can assist with that too. With John Dolbeck at First Home Mortgage, his job doesn't stop at the closing table. He is always available to renew your financials annually, so that you always know where you stand.
We're listening to a commercial from John Dolbeck right now, First Home Mortgage. He is one of our sponsors, and we will be coming right back after this commercial.
Your cell phone call by the end of the day, he will give you $100 towards your appraisal fee. Call John Dolbeck today, 401-266-4413.
Okay, and welcome back. You are listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I am Joe. I'm your host. And we are here at WNRI Radio every Tuesday from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. at 95.1 on the FM dial, 1380 on the AM dial, or you can catch us at WNRI.com. You can also check me out online. I'm on Facebook as Joe Luca Realtor. You can find me on Instagram, joeluca.realestate. You can also find me on YouTube at Joe Luca Realtor. I'm pretty much everywhere online. I am president of the Rhode Island Association of Realtors. I'm a member of the National Association of Realtors Board of Directors, so I vote on national issues that the National Association is concerned with, issues that could impact buyers and sellers. One of the things I've been very passionate about and very active in is the Realtor Party. The Realtor Party is our lobbying arm. And as realtors, we are not partisan. We are not Republican. We are not Democrat. We support candidates and issues that do not interfere with private property ownership. So they do not make it harder or more expensive to buy, own, or sell real estate. Anything that does that, we would oppose, and we would try and lobby Congress so that they did not support an issue like that, did not make a bill like that become law. Now, one of the things that we just were very much involved in is the tax reform bill. Okay, when these bills were first being submitted, pretty much all of the bills wanted to eliminate the mortgage interest tax deduction. Okay, that's called the MID, mortgage interest deduction. They also wanted to eliminate the state personal tax deduction. Now that is personal income tax as well as property taxes. They wanted to eliminate both of those. They also wanted to get rid of the Section 1031 of the IRS code, which is the provision that allows for like-kind exchanges. This is for commercial real estate property. So I've talked about this before. It involves when you're selling a commercial property and you're going to receive a substantial capital gain on the property, that you would sell it, take all of the profit, the proceeds, and put them directly into another property, another commercial property, so that you deferred the tax implications from property number one. So you bought a property for $100,000, you, let's say, put $100,000 into it, and then you sell it for $350,000, okay? So that is a profit of $150,000. As long as you take all of that money and you put it into another property, you identify the property within 90 days and you close on the property, you will not pay the tax on your gain from property number one. That tax will get deferred and moved on to property number two. So let's say that, to make it simple, that you had to pay a $25,000 tax on that gain. Okay, I'm just making numbers up. I don't know if that's an accurate number or not. So you paid a $25,000 tax on that gain. Now you buy another building. Well, you would, when you sell that building, then you would pay the gain, the tax on the gain from building number two, as well as the $25,000 from building or property number one. So it's not a tax avoidance, it's a tax deference program. So that was going to be eliminated. Now people say, oh, that's just the fat cats, the rich, wealthy people that do that. No, not necessarily true, because that is being used by small investors. They buy a 2 or a 3 family or even a single family property as an investment. Let's say it's foreclosed or it needs a lot of work. They buy it cheap, they put a lot of money into it. They sit on it for a couple of years, rent it maybe several years, and then they go to sell it, and they're going to receive a substantial gain on the property. And then they want to buy another property and do the same thing again, either a bigger property or a more expensive property. Well, that is something that's good, because you have someone that's buying a blighted property, adding value to it. That helps the other properties on the street. And then they want to do the same thing to property number two. Okay? So there would be residual indirect benefits to this investor for him doing what he or she does with real estate. If there's no incentive to do that, what would happen is they would never sell property number one in many instances, so then they could never move on to property number two and eliminate the blight and improve the property values, the adjacent property values, by improving the value of the blighted property. Okay? So these are things that are very important, and the National Association of Realtors, we were very upset when all of these bills were submitted and all of these considerations were not being addressed to our liking. These were going to make it more expensive to own a property, more expensive to sell a property, okay, and therefore more expensive to buy a property, okay. So, it's very important. Home ownership is a big part of our economy. We have the highest home ownership rate in the world. Now, we're the largest economy in the world right now, and if you look at the other large economies of the world, China, Japan, Germany, none of them have a property ownership rate that's anywhere near ours. Okay? We're in the mid 60% range. Germany is in the 50% range, and Japan and China are substantially lower than that. So this is one of the things that makes America great, because you can participate in the American dream. I like to say that realtors, we are the architects of the American dream, because along with our mortgage lender friends, we get people into homes. So if you're a tenant right now and you're paying rent, okay, you should be able to get your rent money. You can buy houses with no money down, so you don't need to have a big chunk of savings. And you can buy a house that's not going to cost you much more, maybe even less than you're paying in rent. And you're going to get a mortgage interest deduction on your taxes, on your federal taxes. So let's say, you're a tenant and you buy a 3-family house here in, Woonsocket or Blackstone, and let's say you're spending $1,000 a month in rent. Well, if you buy a 3-family house and let's say you're going to spend $150,000 on it, let's say you're going to spend $200,000 on it. All right, so you have $200,000 on your mortgage. A $200,000 house, your mortgage payment's probably going to be, let me see if I can pull it up quickly here. Let's see. All right, so if we're going to do a $200,000 mortgage, and the monthly payment would be, let's see, with good credit and everything, your payment, if you're going to put a big deposit down, you could get it down there, but let's say if you're just going to put no money down. All right, so let's say you're buying a house with no money down, you're financing the full $200,000. All right, let's see. Okay, all right, my computer's not working with me here, bear with me. And let's see, we're going to have some numbers here. So your mortgage payment before taxes and insurance is probably going to be about $1,700. So you're paying $1,000 a month now. You have a 3-family house. If you're renting out to 2 other folks that are spending $1,000 a month in rent, you have more than your mortgage covered, and you're not paying anything. Okay, so now what can you do? Now that $1,000 a month that you were spending on your rent, you can put aside. That goes right into savings. Okay, even if you only had to pay $500 to kick in for the mortgage and insurance, you're still able to bank an extra $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. Do that for 2 or 3 years. Okay, now you have enough money to buy another house. Okay, and this is how you can build wealth. All right, one of the reasons why I love selling real estate is because there's nothing else out there that you can sell, that anyone can sell, that will bring you a return on your investment, okay, increase your net worth, and you can live in it. So if you buy a luxury RV, you're going to spend $150,000, $200,000 on it. I guarantee you 2 years from now it's not going to be worth more than that. It will be worth less. If you spend $200,000 on a house, I guarantee you it will be worth more in 2 years than it is when you buy it. Okay? So these are the things that make it really enjoyable and rewarding to be in the real estate business. Working with buyers, working with sellers, helping sellers move to a different stage of their life, if they're upsizing, if they're downsizing, empty nesters, putting a sad part of their life behind them, moving out into a new part of their life, creating new memories, happiness, etc. It's a great thing to do. I love to be able to help people with that, as do my partners on the Joe Luca real estate team, my lending partners, my assistant Hannah Rossi. They like to help people do what they need to do to get into a home. Okay, so we're very fortunate in Rhode Island. We have the forecast is for home values to continue to increase. Interest rates, even if they do go up, they're still going to be well below the historic average 30-year fixed rate mortgage rate. So things are looking very strong, very positive going forward. And this is before you start to factor in people, making more money, more people becoming employed, et cetera, et cetera. Another trend in the demographics is, home buying is done, the largest group of home buyers is between the ages of 30 and 34. The number of people in that age bracket over the next several years is going to be increasing. It's going to continue to increase. So that means there are going to be more people, since that's the age range when people buy homes. The number of people buying homes is going to continue to increase for the next several years. So if you own a home and you're thinking that you might want to sell in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, you're in a good spot. And what you need to do is you need to call me, Joe Luca, Realtor, 401-580-9797, to get yourself prepared to sell your home. Okay? The game of real estate, the business of real estate, is more like a game of chess than a game of checkers. You need to plan ahead. Think about what you want to do, and I can help you do that, help you forecast where you're going to be, what you're going to need at that point in time. Okay? And we can put together spreadsheets, everything that you need. I can work, if you're tech savvy or if you're not tech savvy, I can help you plan ahead so that you will be in a great position when you do need to do something. Okay? Because again, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. Going forward, the more you plan, the better off you'll be. And that's and that you can take to the bank. Okay? But we've done this before with folks. Okay? Now, one thing that's important, and if you're working with me, Joe Luca Realtor, or if you're working with any one of my colleagues, okay, like Emilio DeSpirito, or if it's Marge, Jacob, whoever it might be, listen to what the realtor says your property value is, because we know this is all we do. So you want to list your house for sale? Great. You want to sell it for X plus Y. Your realtor professional is telling you, well, it's only really worth X based on what everything else is sold for in your neighborhood, as well as I know what buyers are looking for, and they are only willing to pay this much money for this type of a house in this type of a neighborhood. Because we work with lots of buyers, okay? When you're working with a full-time experienced realtor, we sell multiple houses per month, all right? So if you only buy 1 or 2 houses in your lifetime, you should work with someone when you're buying or selling a house that does it on a regular basis, that is going to see lots of different things. So when something happens during the process, it's not new to them. They've seen it before. They know how to manage it, and they can calm you down, because buying and selling a home is stressful. And we know what is a big deal and what's not a big deal. And chances are, if it's something that is a big deal, we know how to work to get it resolved, because that's what we do. That is our job. Okay? I mean, it's like you go to the dentist, okay, and the dentist encounters a cavity, okay? Well, it's not a big deal for him, because he deals with cavities all the time. Okay? If you're going to a lawyer, okay, and you go to the lawyer because your neighbor is encroaching on your property and you don't know what to do, and it seems like a big deal for you because you have to see this every day and it annoys the heck out of you. But when you go to the lawyer, it's like, it's not that big of a deal because he's dealt with this many times before. He knows what letters to write, how to write them, and when to send them out, and what to ask for. Okay? Same thing with the dentist, and the same thing with a realtor when you're buying a house. That's why realtors, experienced full-time realtors, what we do is we get folks who we work well with, home inspectors, moving companies, mortgage lenders, that will take care of our clients. They know how to overcome. They're experienced. They are licensed, these team members. So they will protect the client, whether you're the buyer or the seller. And that's important, because if I have a client, whether it's a friend of mine or just even a client that I just met at the beginning of the transaction, and they say, hey, Joe, who would you recommend for ABC to move my furniture, or to to where I should go buy a car if I'm moving here from somewhere else? I need people that I can rely on that are going to take care of those clients, that are not going to treat them in a disrespectful manner, that are not going to charge them an arm and a leg because they see that, oh, they can buy an expensive house, or they're moving from here to there. Okay? So these are the different things that a full-time realtor can do to help you as a buyer, can help you as a seller, so that the transaction will be, the amount of stress you experience will be minimized, because we know what we're doing. Realtors can help you out. All right, we are coming up. It's time to listen to another commercial. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Is your realtor of the year? To maximize value for buyers and sellers.
Sometimes I just need to take a break, give the old vocal cords a quick break, and then we listen to my commercial.
And their real estate goals.
And we'll be back in about another 40 seconds. We're going to talk a little bit about some fun stuff right now. I couldn't get my mortgage calculator to come up before, but we're going to talk about some fun stuff now. How to make your house a home, and then we're going to talk about something that's not so much fun. What you have to do if you need to evict a relative from your property. That's not fun, but it's something that people have to deal with. So we'll get into that in about another 8 seconds.
383-6669. That's 401-383-6669.
Okay, welcome back. You are listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI Radio, 95.1 FM, 1380 on the AM dial, as well as WNRI.com. I want to make a big shout out to my friend and fellow realtor Kim, who is out in Nebraska, and I'm hoping that she will be listening to the show this week. I want to switch gears a little bit, talk about something fun. How do you find your true personal style? Okay? How can you make your house feel like a home? There are things that you can do to make your house homey when you move into it. It's like a white canvas, a blank canvas, and there are things you can do. But beyond just the furniture, okay? You can have a condo or a house, it's nicely furnished, but it's missing those personal, mysterious, magical refinement elements that make it a home, okay? Make it homey, as they say. All right. Some people, what they'll do to find out what their style is they go on Pinterest and they look online at different commercial websites to get ideas. But sometimes what you need to do is you need to ditch all of that stuff. Get rid of the Pinterest board. Don't go to House or Wayfair or wherever you're going to go, and you need to figure out what it is that you like that's going to make your home your individual sanctuary, okay? Because it's a reflection of who you are. So you want it to be something that you can spend a lot of time in, you can enjoy, because you spend a lot of money. You're spending a lot of money to buy it. You're going to spend a lot of money to maintain it and to retain ownership. So you need to let go of any expectations of making your home look like something you see in the movies, on TV, or in a magazine, or online. Okay? One of the things that a lot of people have found helpful is you just identify things that you really like, you personally. If it's, if you're more of like a traditionalist, old-fashioned with, you can really appreciate that Victorian style, okay, surround yourself with that stuff. If you like more modern things, okay, maybe you like to be a little bit eclectic, okay, go to the resale shops and the antique shops and things like that, and you can just start gathering objects that you have a connection with, all right? Because that's going to give you an indication of what your style is, what your personal style is. And these are just, small things. I'm not talking about big things. The things you can hold in your hand that have their own energy and that you can identify with. That's going to give you an indication. You'll feel some comfort with that object that'll show you what your style is, all right? So when you get a bunch of things together, if it's 15, 20, 24, 25 items, lay them all out and see if there's a pattern there. You can take a picture of it if you want, so you can keep it with you. Take it on your picture on your phone, keep it with you. All right, now that's like your master collection. Okay, it has everything that you like. Maybe you'll have natural things. You like outdoorsy stuff. Maybe you like certain fabrics. Okay. Now, okay, that photograph, your picture, your master objects, you can see if there are certain colors that you're attracted to, certain textures that you like. Okay. Because textures mean a lot too. If you go, some modern houses you go into in more urban areas, they have very clean lines. Everything is like all white or stainless steel. Not a lot of tchotchke stuff hanging around. That's one type of a feeling. Okay. Whether or not you're going to have rugs, you're going to have plush rugs. You're going to have pile rugs. If you're going to have other types of textures on your furniture, what kind of sofa are you going to have? All right, these are things you look for them based on these objects that you've acquired that you identify with. If it's by texture, if it's just a piece of cloth, if it's some type of an object that has that resonates with you, these can help you do that. All right, it'll give you an indication based on what you like, what kind of wall hangings you want to have. Do you want to have modernist photographs? Do you want to have abstract paintings? Okay, do you want to have just objects of art hanging on the wall? All right, framed photos of the family, different things like that. These are all of the things that can help you make your house a home in your own personal style, not the style of someone else's Pinterest board. Okay, I always chuckle to myself sometimes because I've been in several houses where, the people they may be staging their home or whatever, but you can tell a lot of the photographs in the picture frames are the photographs that came with the picture frames in the store. It's not a picture of their family. It's got that picture of the perfect couple or the perfect children or whatever it is in the picture frame. All right. You don't want to do that. You want to have your own style. Make your home your own. Okay. Some people go over the top in what they do, and that is can be an issue if you're going to be selling your house. Because you do not want items in your house or a style that is too, what we call in the industry, taste specific. All right, having back in the 90s, people would have pink walls in their houses. There was a colleague of mine, she had a listing, and it was a single guy's house, and his living room, the cocktail table in the living room, consisted of a bumper off of a classic car with a piece of glass on the top. Really cool. As a guy, I thought that was awesome. However, when you're trying to sell a house, you don't want people to remember, oh yeah, that was the house with the bumper in the living room. That's not what you want. You want them to remember your house for something else. If he had a very, nondescript, boring cocktail table right there, it would have served him better because people would have remembered other parts of the house that were, that should have been more memorable. Okay. So you need to do things like that to make your house a home, but you always want to keep things in check, okay? If you're getting ready to sell your house, you don't want to have all this crazy stuff, that's really taste specific. If you're just moving in, great, do that stuff, but realize at some point when you sell your house, you're going to have to kind of dial it back a little bit. You don't want it to be too much outside the box, all right? So let's see, so that was something fun. Now, a lot of times people, if you own a house and if it's a multifamily house or you have another house that you're renting out, it's a single family house or a condo, sometimes what people will do is they will rent out to a family member. They figure, put this person in there, they're going to take care of it, it's my cousin, my brother, my sister, a parent, whatever it is. All right. Well, what happens when that family member has worn out their welcome, okay? And you find that they're not taking care of the house, so it's getting really, shop worn. They're not telling you about things. Maybe they're, starting to pay the rent a little bit late. These are issues which can be very alarming and a cause for concern to a landlord, and that's what you are, even though it's a family member, okay? You know, you may start to feel guilty because you need to, you know you need to do something, but you don't want to. But you have a lot of company on this issue because there are a lot of folks out there who do this, all right? So what do? You know, how do you proceed? Now, is the relative, a lot of it depends on what state you're in, okay? You know, if someone's staying in your home, are they a relative or are they a tenant? Now, presumably or hopefully, if you put someone in your multifamily property and they're living there, you had them sign a lease. What that does is that will establish, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not offering legal advice, I'm just giving some pointers, because if you need to evict someone, you need to speak with an attorney who's experienced in tenant evictions. And I have some folks that I work with, so you can always call me, Joe Luca, Realtor, 401-580-9797, and I will give you their name and number. But if you're going to have a tenant who is a relative, make sure you have a lease, all right? No one likes to evict a family member, okay? So unless it's a boarder, someone who is boarding with you, that can be a little bit more precarious. You're going to have to give them some type of a notice to vacate, and it states why and when they have to vacate. Typically, it's at least 30 days for a residential eviction, okay? You need to be very specific in everything that you say. Your tenant, if they don't leave by that deadline, then you have to file an eviction petition with the courts, okay? Now, these things take time to get into the courts, all right? But you need to start the process rolling. The process starts with that first letter, all right? Now, if your tenant still refuses to leave, even though you get a notice or an eviction notice from the court, they're in violation of a court order, now you can call law enforcement to remove them from the property. This is true whether it's the tenant is a relative or not, okay? So you want to pay attention to this, because if you're renting your house to a relative, if it's an apartment in a multifamily, if it's a condominium, something out of state, anyway, you need to really get something to memorialize, put in writing, the type of relationship you have with them, okay? It's much better if you treat it as a landlord-tenant relationship. They know, they have in black and white what they're expected to do to remain living in the property. Also, it makes it easier for you for lots of different levels. If it's for getting insurance, you know, depositing monies, valuing the house when you go to sell the house. You know, there are a lot of things that you need to be concerned with when you are a landlord and you're going to be renting out one of your properties or a portion of one of your properties to a family member. But the most important thing is to consult an attorney. And you want to consult an attorney, not just any attorney, not your uncle or cousin or sibling who's a lawyer. You want to consult an attorney who's experienced in landlord-tenant relations and tenant evictions, okay? I have attorneys that I work with who are very experienced and very effective in what they do. So give me a call. You're listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI Radio 95.1 FM, 1380 on the AM dial. We are right here in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, in the heart of the Blackstone River Valley. And we're here every Tuesday night. So if you have questions about, you have a tenant you think you want to get rid of, give me a call. I will, depending on where you live and the type of situation, I will give you the name and phone number of an attorney that I work with, and they will help you out, tell you what you need to do to get this done in the most expeditious fashion. Do not wait, okay? As soon as someone starts paying their rent late, you really need to get on task and start putting things in writing to move forward, because 6 months can go by very quickly without you collecting any rent. And many times these tenants, whether it's a family member or not, these tenants can really do a lot of damage to your house. I had a personal experience as a landlord. I had a tenant. I felt bad for her. I let her move in, gave her a break when she moved in on the rent, and she never put the utilities in her name, and it was horrendous situation, and it was all my fault because I felt bad, and I did things out of a misplaced sense of compassion for someone, and I ended up harming myself and my partner as landlords. It cost us a lot of money to get her out. We had a lot of lost rent, and it cost a lot of money to get the property so it was in rentable condition again. So you go through, you have 6 months of no rent coming in. You have to spend money on an attorney to get the individual out. Then you have to spend money to get the property rentable again, and so there's going to be another month or two where it's vacant. So now you're looking at 8 months of lost rental income. All right. So these are the things that make it challenge to be a landlord. A lot of times people think, oh, being a landlord is easy. You just collect money every month. It's not that easy. You have to do a lot of work. You have to be, and the important thing to remember is you have to be very, very fussy about who you are letting live in your property. You have to think about it as being your home, and would you want them to live there? And you're better off up front taking a longer time to put a good tenant in there, because otherwise at the back end you will go a longer time without collecting rent and possibly having your property damaged along the way. So these are the things that you need to think about when you're landlording. Okay, it's not easy. Just like flipping properties, not easy. One of the most important things when you're flipping a property is you really need to pay attention to time. Okay, you need to do your cost management. Okay, you need to know what you need to buy. You need to know the repairs the property needs, and then you need to get everything done, executed very quickly, because you don't want to have to hold that property longer than necessary, because one, you have insurance costs that are accruing every month, property taxes, utilities. Okay, every month these things add up, and if you're borrowing the money, a lot of times flippers use private lenders. You're paying a lot of juice, a lot of interest every month. So if you have a $100,000 loan at 14, 15, 16% interest, that's a lot of juice every month. Okay, the longer you hold on to it, the more money you're paying in interest. You don't want to finish up and then sell the house, and the guy who lent the money made more money than you did, and you did all the hard work as the flipper. Okay, so these are the things that, when you're in the real estate industry, you see people do a lot of things right. You see people do a lot of things wrong, make a lot of mistakes. Okay, and you learn from other people's mistakes. We learn from our own mistakes. And a lot of times, it's concerning because there are these do-it-yourself or these reality shows on television, on cable networks, and these shows give the wrong impression. They make lots of mistakes in those shows that if they were doing it in real life, they would pay dearly for it. But you see, they can overlook things like that because they're getting paid by the networks for their shows. So if they lose money when they're flipping a house, or don't make as much money as they should, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, but in real life, you have to pay attention to time. You have to pay attention to the money. So you need to know what you're doing when you're doing your bidding, your estimating, and you need to also find out how long it's going to take. Okay, what needs to be ordered? Everything that the house needs, can those materials be purchased readily? If it's going to take a long time to get something repaired, you need to factor that in. Okay, so we are coming up towards the end of the show right now. We are here every week. You can listen to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI, and we will be right back. We will be back next week at 6 p.m. on WNRI 95.1 FM. Okay, thank you very much for listening or looking at the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 95.1 FM and YouTube. Thank you. Bye-bye.